There's so many different ways to change ourselves and transform. You can do different habits like eating differently, exercising more, practicing being kinder and more strong and more resilient. But like, how do you actually do that? I want to share with you a secret that I discovered for myself through this path of transformation that I've been on for 20 plus years or so and practicing as a celibate monk. I do a lot of contemplation and a lot of experiments around how I can transform myself and how I can more effectively help other people to transform. So I'll start with a quick story here. There were a few years ago when I was a pretty reactive person. And I would get irritable and contracted and frustrated about things pretty easily. And it was all rooted in, for me, this real deep sense of insecurity. Now, I became really dedicated, very dedicated, to changing that aspect of myself. But every time I would sincerely devote myself to not being reactive, to just taking a breath, to being more open, to receiving feedback, I would just get triggered in certain moments. And it was often with people that were treating me the way that I was. So, for example, they would relate to me as a reactive person and kind of give these barbs of feedback because I had hurt them, I think, in my reactivity historically. But then I would get reactive about them seeing me as reactive, right? It was a pretty vicious cycle in myself. And what I found was that in order for me to really change and to really grow, I had to give not only myself, but other people a compelling reason to see me as a new person. And this is one of these secrets to change that I haven't heard many people talk about, and I sort of just stumbled upon it myself, because it takes something not only for us to make the decision to change, it takes an act of courage that is rooted in vulnerability, without a doubt. Any of you who are working on shifting something in yourself, it takes a moment where you just really look at yourself and you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to shift. I want to do this. I want to be a different person. I want to get different results. So there's that vulnerable aspect of being with ourselves in that moment. And then sometimes we go out into the world and we practice being that way, and our feelings or how we're impacted by either the world or people in terms of the world, in terms of circumstances, or people see us in the old way. And now here's the key. Give other people an authentic and compelling reason to see you as a new person. Now, what that looks like for you it will be different for almost everybody. One of the ways that you can do that is to become comfortable in your vulnerability, and to become comfortable with a heart-centered authenticity. And most importantly, catch yourself at being the old person that you don't want to be anymore. Own it potentially in the moment with that person, at least with yourself, and create the new person in that moment, and shorten the time that it takes to get from old reactive person, I'm using myself as an example here, to new, stable, open, less insecure, more secure, more open, more willing to take feedback kind of person, right? So in order to really change and to really transform, we need to give our outside world a compelling reason to see us as someone new. Now, what will happen in your path of doing this is that you will find certain people in your life that are more open to being adaptable to seeing the new person that you are. And you will also realize that there are other people in your life who want you to be who you were. And they might enjoy that. They might appreciate, getting into fights with you. They might want you to stay the same for a variety of reasons that have to do with mostly them. You'll make a choice then around how you continue being in that relationship with those people. And I'm talking like a friendship or a working relationship, a romantic relationship, whatever quality of relationship it is. You'll make a choice whether to stay in that relationship or step away from the relationship. Now, stepping away doesn't mean that you don't care for them and you don't love them, but it does mean that you might complete that relationship because they keep you tethered to that old way of being that you are emerging out of. So this is a key. And if you don't do this, it's often a reason that people give up on trying to change or transform some aspect of themselves, because they don't give the outside world a compelling enough reason to see them and experience them as new. Now, let's say you're making a sincere, dedicated choice to transform yourself in the world, and situations keep happening to you that keep you or that relate to you as that old person. For example, driving is a great example. Or if you live in New York City, the subway, how people treat you, or when situations happen to you, are people, being jerk drivers. Maybe that just kind of happens certain places. Actually, I think it kind of does. But nonetheless, things keep happening to you that relate to you as if you're that old person. Here's what you do. The same thing. Give a compelling reason for life, in this case, the life force reflecting aspects of ourselves from the outside in, to give you different circumstances. In fact, I haven't seen a situation where this isn't the case. With everyone that I've ever worked with, and every moment in myself when I've transformed, and there was an outside world circumstance, meaning an uncomfortable thing that happens. I lose a job. I have a conflict with a colleague or a friend. Something happens that reflects an inner state of being inside of me. Let's say that I'm holding some kind of resentment or anger or frustration inside of myself. And there's an outside world reflection of that. Why that happens is, one, because that's happening inside of us and it's just getting reflected or expressed from life on the outside of us. And two, it's an opportunity to transform that aspect of ourselves. How? Someone is angry with us because we did something that was based in the old version of ourselves. Well, in that moment, we are faced with a choice inside of ourselves. Do we respond to the result of that old person's impact with the old version of ourselves or the new version of ourselves? If we respond with the new version of ourselves, we will both simultaneously be healing that internal aspect of ourselves and healing the impact that it had on the external world, right? I'll just take anger as an example. I said something to somebody, and this has happened to me, by the way. I've said something to somebody in a reactive place. It hurt their feelings. It had them feel devalued. I was really self-centered and angry and frustrated about something that had nothing to do with them. They approached me. There's an aspect of me, and this has happened for me historically, where I felt defensive about it, wanted to justify why I was angry or why they needed to hear the feedback or whatever justification I had. That isn't really a good idea in that moment. There might be reasons, but I was justifying around how I was actually angry. I soften and I listen to what they have to say, and I take ownership around the impact that they're sharing with me, even if they're doing it in a reactive, angry way themselves. How can I be secure enough in myself to hear what they really have to say? Because if I do that, I'll be healing myself. It's amazing. And I'll also have the opportunity of healing that relationship if we choose to move forward, whatever the nature of that relationship is, right? So this is a huge secret to change. Give the outside world compelling reasons to see you as the new person that you are. All my best.